Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rejuvenated Women, Impeccable Health for High-Performing Women. I am your host, Dr. Alex Swenson-Ridley, and today I am joined by Liz Larson, and I have to tell you, I'm really excited for this conversation. She is the co-creator of the Cognomovement system, a master neuro-linguistic programming practitioner and transformation strategy specialist. She's also the author of the ebook, Suffering is Optional. She's passionate about creating change by challenging and deleting patterns and taking it to the next levels of consciousness, manifesting and timeline jumping. So Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm going to have lots of questions for you as we
I love questions.
get into this. So, we were talking before, and I'm like so intrigued by what it is that you do and just how all this works. So let's maybe we'll just start with explaining. Some people may be familiar with neuro-linguistic programming, but obviously you've also created your own system that's the Cognomovement. So maybe you can give us a little background on like what is the purpose of these things, why should we be interested, and then we'll go from there.
Well, what's the purpose? That is a really big question because it literally covers every area of our life. So, that's an issue when we're trying to describe what this is like. What's it for? We use it for athletes. People use it to change relationships. People use it to just get unstuck. The biggest thing that it does is it helps the body get unstuck from the patterns that it's holding energy in. And what's super cool, by the way, is you get all the energy back when you delete the pattern. So let's talk about that later, by the way.
Love it.
Yeah, people use it to just move their life forward mostly. And the main things that it does is it pushes information to the left and the right brain. So everybody wants more brain power, right? So immediately we do that. We activate the three main ways that the body learns, because we forget that when we're asking the body to change or the brain to change, it has to learn something new. So we activate that. We move people through emotions into neutrality, or, that daydreaming state, and then up into ideas and inspiration. So if a person can use new ideas or inspiration, if they can use better balance or athletic performance, if they want more of their brain, if they want to be unstuck, which is all of us, right? We want to move.
Yeah.
That's what the Cognomovement system does. I hope did I answer everything you asked me?
Yeah, no. And like I said, I have like a million questions. So this is going to be a lot of fun. And for our listeners, part of why I'm so excited about this conversation is because we're really tapping into like, how do you actually truly change behavior and have it stick long term? And it's really, we're talking about retraining the brain, and it's completely possible. And in doing that, you can essentially create the habits and the, who you really want to be in the world, which is
absolutely. So cool. I think that's the big thing, is that people don't realize, and I had no idea before getting into this work, that what keeps us stuck is patterns in the body, from the brain to the body. Our work focuses on the body, the sensation part. I always say that when you're trying to change the brain, the mind, our logical mind, it's like wrestling a 400-pound gorilla to the ground. And once you get it there, good luck keeping it down, right?
Right.
You go to a seminar, you have a session, and bam, your mind's blown and you see all the possibilities in the world, right? And then about 3 days later, like laying on the floor in deep depression because you experienced all the possibilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
You saw them, you knew it was possible, but the thing is now back and on you like that 400-pound gorilla.
Yeah.
So I hate that idea. So for me, this work, being able to change it and have it change permanently, if we can address the body, the feeling part, because the other big secret is the body informs the mind. You meet somebody and you have a funny feeling about them, it tells your brain, hey, we don't like them. Don't talk to them. We don't like them, because of the feeling. But you meet somebody and you have a great feeling about them. You're like, hey, this person's cool. Neither may be true, but the body and the feeling informs the mind. what we've discovered is that dun, da, 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 when you delete the feeling from the body, the brain doesn't give a crap about that thing anymore. We people get amnesia, terrible for business, but really great for the person. So lots of times at the end of the session, we'll come back and remind them of why they showed up. And then they look at us like, what are you talking about? So we remind them, well, you came in and today you said that this problem was a 10 out of a 10. Oh, yeah, no, it wasn't that big of a deal to start with. Literally that quickly, the brain's like, I don't really care about that anymore. And I need to go because I got things to do. Right? That's how amazingly simple the body mind connection is. But we've been trying to go through the brain instead of the body all these years. So that's our big discovery, really.
That's so interesting. I'm pondering this. And so, because you hit on something that I've been studying a lot, in kind of, I'm in a PhD program that's based in quantum physics right now in integrative and natural medicine. And so, this is totally dovetails with that, but it's so interesting because we can't, like, the brain and the body are connected, and emotions are essentially what drive that,
Yeah.
on a big level. And so talk to me more about, like, how do we actually delete an emotion? Because that's our feeling. That's I think that's what you just said. Like,
that is what I just said.
okay.
Also, before I do that, it's and not a but, an and that we consider emotions as the thing that drives the brain, and that's true. And our physical pain does the same thing. So sometimes for us, the thing we're focusing on is a pinprick on the bottom of the foot. Sometimes it's a pain in the shoulder. Sometimes it's this terrible, overwhelming feeling of grief. So it's an and pain sensation. We say sensation, right?
Okay.
So here's really the big idea. When at conception, really, body starts learning. Also brain, but body. And we learn very quickly what is uncomfortable and what's comfortable. So we don't want the body to have to relearn every time there's something dangerous. Like, you learn a stove is hot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had to relearn that every time a stove is hot, that would be very unresourceful, right?
Yeah.
So we get these automated systems, limbic system, right? Automated system, subconscious, starts to record these patterns within our body. So there's always a little bit of energy going to, we don't touch things that are sharp. We don't touch things that are hot. We don't walk out in front of cars. Super amazing system, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to relearn. However, what most of us don't know is that our body does that for everything. So when you're 2 and your mom tells you, no, don't touch. And if the brain and the body are developing at the right rate at that time, the little body will create a pattern like, okay, mom doesn't like me because she just yelled and that hurt. So now body has just a tiny bit of fight or flight right there. You need to be aware because maybe that person over there that you think is actually a part of you, maybe they don't like you that much. Pattern. Okay. So now maybe you're 4 and your grandma tells you, no, don't touch that. That's grandma's favorite thing. Ooh, wait, that matches. Let's make that a little bigger because now we need to really be aware that not everyone likes us. You can see where this pattern is going, right?
Yeah.
Now we start grade school and maybe teacher tells us, stop talking, you're being too loud. Ooh, that matches too. Bigger pattern, bigger pattern, bigger pattern. So that person, from an innocent, no, don't touch that because you might get hurt, creates things that match that pattern. We call them stacks of energy, of actual horsepower used to run that little protective pattern. So the body's doing a great job. It wants to protect us from things that hurt, even though that doesn't really make sense that when you're 2 and mom said no, that means she doesn't like you. But the body recorded it that way. So we end up with these on every subject you can imagine, patterns. So that's the setup. It's protective. The body's doing it for a very good reason. Only, it becomes very unresourceful. Keeps us stuck, keeps us thinking people don't like us, keeps us
Mm.
not having the relationships we want, the work, the money, on and on. And it creates, some disease in the body as well. So you asked, this is a long way around, how do we delete it?
Yeah.
So in Cognomovement, we're going in through the body, like I said before. So we're having the person focus on the thing that is the problem. Now, consciously, they're not going to know it was from when they were 2, but they might just say, I don't know why, I just don't make friends well. I don't know why, I just can't find a love partner relationship. Okay, how does that feel in your body? Well, I have a pit in my gut every time I think about it, or I start to have anxiety when I meet somebody. So fight or flight kicks in, right? Or maybe it's grief, or they may not know any of that. It might be like, oh my gosh, I just can't get this shoulder to move. So in my personal practice, I have a lot of physical therapists who send me their clients for this reason. They know that body should be working and moving, but it isn't. So we may find it there. We don't even have to know what the problem is. We just have to know that the body is having a sensation that's not resourceful, that's distracting, that's hurting.
Yeah.
Now, the delete part is we challenge that through cross-body movement, eye accessing, getting the brain harmonized, relaxing the nervous system. So Cognomovement is a very comprehensive system, but it's all physical with, maybe the tiniest bit of psychology or NLP. Well, it's a little more than a tiny, but
Yeah.
for the mind, but it's all physical. So the body can't run that pattern and do this weird cross-body movement. The body can't run that pattern, which we're asking it to do,
Right.
and move through emotion, neutrality, and inspiration with the eyes. The body can't run that program and see the truth of that pattern in their own memory. We access that through the eyes.
Okay.
So pretty soon the body's like, look, this is not what we do. This is not how this works. If you're going to keep asking me to run this thing that way, I'm not doing it. And pretty soon the connections are broken. So it's like a circuit, a closed circuit.
Yeah.
Imagine electricity, you unlatch that circuit. It doesn't find its way back. It's just gone. It dissolves from the body. So we're really tricking the body in a way, or forcing the body, and I hate that word force,
Yeah.
to run its patterns in ways that it's never done before.
Mhm.
And it's not just any patterns. These are very, very strategic tools that we use to, tell the body, nah, that's not it. So imagine this, you've got 59 stacks on one subject and all the energy, physical horsepower that it costs to run that pattern.
Mhm.
When it dissolves in real time in the body and it's instant, all of that energy floods back to the body. So we see people like light up. At the end of the session, their face looks different, like whiter, their eyes are brighter. Sometimes they look 5 years younger. Sometimes they actually look like a different person. And they'll say, oh my God, I feel like a different person. What it is they're just their own natural horsepower has returned.
Yeah. And with that, it sounds like once the pattern's disrupted and changed, like you don't go back, right? The reprogramming doesn't start to return. The brain's just like,
No, it doesn't. If we've gotten it to a 0, so we use a 1 to 10 scale,
Mhm.
and we use a lot of neurological cues a practitioner can see, but
Yeah.
people can do it for themselves as well. If you're really honest that when you try to recall that thing, you just can't find it anymore, it's gone.
Okay.
If we don't do a great job of getting it to a 0, if we're not honest with ourselves, if we're doing it as a solo session on ourselves, or
Mhm.
if we're with a practitioner, and we're close but not there, it's not fully disconnected. And it can start to creep back a bit It never comes back the same way as it did before, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, because I know, and we can speak into this, like so many of us and the women I work with, I'm coaching a lot of high performing women who are stuck
Yeah.
somehow, right? And so this
Yeah.
is totally in line, and I'm checking out your certification after our conversation. But um, you know, it sounds like this is really fast, like it can, and change is there. And I'm like so passionate about and interested in how much our brain controls what we do, and it's protective, but at times, like, to grow, we have to be able to let that protection go. And so
Yeah.
I'm just super curious about this. But what's like the timeline that you see that it takes someone to let something go and reprogram their pattern?
Well, minutes.
Amazing.
So there's a number of ways. So one of the ways, like I said, is we have a program called Basic Training, where a person comes in, they learn the steps, they get 2 balls,
Mhm.
and they start to work the sessions on their own. So we say one thing at a time, literally one thing at a time. So one thing it's great for, and people will start with cravings.
Yeah.
Cravings is just a pattern, right? You start thinking about it, then you start salivating, then your nervous system is like, ooh, that would calm me for a moment. I would
Mhm.
feel better if you give me those Oreos. Right? So a lot of people will start there, and that's a pattern that's super deletable and fun. It's about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Sometimes it's much faster than that. I'll tell you a fun story. It's not fun for me, though. It's just fun for people who hear it.
Okay.
So Bill and I, early on, we were working online, and this guy said, it was chocolate chip cookies. He just couldn't lose weight, and he was struggling with his blood sugar, and chocolate chip cookies were his issue.
Mm.
So we watch very carefully everything that the body's doing. Are the shoulders congruent? Are the ears on straight? Are the eyebrows equal? Is there stress in the eyes? What's the color of the skin? So this particular guy, we were online, and his room was kind of dark. So I'm leaned into the computer, straining to watch every move so I can see when something changed.
Mhm.
No, I wasn't leading the session. Bill was. That's Bill McKenna, the founder of Cognomovement. I'm watching so carefully. So the guy gets to a 0. He doesn't want anything to do with chocolate chip cookies. Great. Good session. Well, I don't keep chocolate chip cookies in my house because I would eat them. They happen to be the thing that would, right?
Yeah.
So about 6 months later, my daughter says, hey, Mom, there's this new cookie place in town. Like, you have to try it. I'm like, first of all, why? What is your problem? Why are you trying to get me to eat cookies? So we go, big, beautiful cookies. I mean, they're like $4 each, huge. They weigh a pound each, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Smell amazing.
Mhm.
I took one bite and it tasted like nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. And my daughter's like, Mom, what is wrong with you? Like, that's the best thing ever. I'm like, I don't know, but it tastes like nothing to me. And I'm thinking, okay, great. Dodge that bullet. I don't have to eat those. Well, another couple months later, my son asked me to make chocolate chip cookies. So I did. Didn't taste the dough. That was weird. About 3 days later, I said to my son, hey, were those cookies any good? Like, were they okay? And he's like, yeah, Mom, those are the best cookies you ever made. So I broke a piece off and tasted it again. It's like nothing, like cardboard. Smelled okay, looked okay. And then I recalled I got whammied by that guy's session just by watching. So, and to this day, like, I like the idea of chocolate chip cookies, but it tastes like nothing to me.
Wow.
So that's how quickly a pattern can be unwound. Now in session, lots of times with a practitioner, you'll do 2 or 3 hours,
Mhm.
and you might go through and pluck out 10 of those stacks of issues
Yeah.
surrounding a whole area of life. So, it can be done either way.
That's really interesting. And I know something you talk about is miracles. And so would you say, just based on your work and the things you do, like, can miracles happen? Can we
Oh
really
my
change
gosh.
our entire lives?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes. So a Cognomovement practitioner's joke, and it's not a joke, it's real, but it's our inside joke, is where's my miracle today?
Mm-hmm.
Because we literally see them daily.
That's
The
amazing.
power of somebody's energy being returned to their body and what becomes possible for them is nothing but what seems like miracles, because it wasn't possible before and
Mm-hmm.
it's possible now. So one of the big ones we see is relationships. We'll see a person come in and they'll be like, you know what? I'm leaving my husband. We get that one a lot. He's, he doesn't support me. He's not good to me. He's all the things. And then we do a session on how they feel about that, because we say, let the body tell the truth. Feel what you feel. Don't push it away. Make it bigger. Welcome that sensation. Hate him as much as you do, right?
Yeah.
And afterward, they feel neutral. And they're like, okay, well, I feel neutral about him. I don't know what that's going to do. They'll leave the session, and now all of a sudden their husband is acting like a completely different person. One huge one, the woman was going to leave her husband because he absolutely would not support her. She was constantly fighting with her sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
And for, 20 years, he blamed her, the wife. It's you, you're, the B word, it's you. After her session, that day, her husband recognized what the sister was doing, apologized, changed everything. And their son, a week later, said, Mommy, I like how our life is now.
Wow.
She let everybody out of that pattern in her body. Crazy, right?
That is completely crazy.
But if you consider, you said you were studying quantum physics. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll love this. Consider Tesla coil. What happens in a Tesla coil? Round and round and round with electricity, right?
Right.
What is a pattern between the body and the brain? Electromagnetic, chemical, hormonal signals.
Yeah.
Why in the world would we not think that creates an electromagnetic field? The more intensely that is felt and the more often,
Mm-hmm.
the bigger the electromagnetic field. So are you familiar with BioWell, the BioWell system?
I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, it's Dr. Korotkov created it, and it helps you actually measure a person's available electromagnetic energy in joules.
Interesting. Okay.
So before and after, and I can show you when we're off of the interview, but before and after the session, we'll see a 20% increase in the amount of joules, electricity in the body, right?
Yeah.
But it's shifted. It's gone from running this huge electromagnetic pattern, creating an electromagnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
HeartMath Institute has measured that.
Yeah.
Which everyone around you is now affected by.
Mm-hmm.
So with this one woman, you delete the pattern in her body, it's collapsed. The electromagnetic field is no longer running. The people around her can't be affected by it because it's gone. Now she has an absolutely new perspective on life. Remember, once the body doesn't feel that way anymore, the brain forgets.
Mm-hmm.
And now instantly, again and again and again and again, daily, we hear these stories. It appears as though the people around you have changed. So we call it quantum jumping in that it appears that you've shifted timelines.
Yeah.
Your life, your timeline, everything that was being controlled by that electromagnetic field is no longer being controlled by it. So everything else is possible.
That's
We
amazing.
say it with money, relationships, bodies. If we have time, I'll tell you an amazing story about eyesight. So let me know if you have time for that.
Yeah, well, let's just go ahead. Maybe we can end on that note. But I'm sure everyone listening is entranced by this as I am. So, yeah, tell me about eyesight. Let's talk about that.
Well, first, I also have to tell you, I'm entranced by it too. Obviously, it's my
Yeah.
favorite thing in the world to talk about, just because the possibilities are huge and it's really simple. It doesn't take months and years. You don't have to go to therapy forever you just challenge the pattern and delete it.
Yeah.
That's simple. So it's exciting.
Actually, before we talk about eyesight, I did have a question, and maybe you
Yeah.
can guide with this. So one of the things I talk about with women I work with a lot is our circle of influence. I think it was Dale Carnegie or somebody who came up with this, but we have positive people who like lift us up and bring us joy, neutral people who don't really affect us, and then I call them vampires who like suck all the life energy out of us.
Yeah.
Have you done any studying or looked at, is it that EMF, kind of the electromagnetic field that's radiating off of these more negative people in a bigger way that is sucking energy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially,
So
your
encouraging.
perspective is your perspective.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. This whole idea of you create your world, I mean, it's totally true because everything's through your lens.
Right.
So these patterns, these electromagnetic fields, if you will, that hold everybody who's in your vicinity in place, right?
Mhm.
So that energy vampire, they're a match to your energy, period.
Interesting.
If they weren't, they couldn't come in your vicinity. They wouldn't be
Right.
part of your paradigm. So what happens is one of two things. Instantly, that person is now your new best friend. We see it all the time, all the time. So much fun. Or all of a sudden, they're gone. Like if it's, we hear about this in the office and work all the time. The next day, they're transferred somewhere, or they just don't cross your path anymore.
Wow.
They're so far off your radar that it's like they never existed. It's a very, very interesting phenomenon.
That
But
is.
it's all about you and your perspective. You're literally seeing what you can see. When those patterns are gone and they no longer try to keep you safe and in the framework that your body created, you now see them as a completely different person. They look different, they sound different, they are different, or they just dissolve out of your reality. Sounds very metaphysical,
Mm-hmm.
but it isn't. It's just physical. We have this field of potential in which we create,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the universe matches that. So whatever's in here, we're matching. So there's another piece of Cognomovement that, and it's Cognoquantum. It's beyond Cognomovement,
Mm-hmm.
where we teach people actually how to touch that right in their field
Right.
because it's so physical. It's literally right there. You can feel it, and you can also delete it from there as well. You still need to get the pattern out of your system, though.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're going to keep creating that same one again and again, which we all experience and call stuck.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So interesting. Okay. So before we wrap up, and I'll recap kind of at the end just to bring it all together, but let's talk about eyesight. I want to hear this.
Okay. So what's interesting is cognitive movement attracts a lot of doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Within our ranks, we have an ophthalmologist, which is where this story comes from. We have acupuncturists, we have physical therapists, we have regular therapists, we have doctors of psychology. Simply because they're people like us who want to get things done faster,
Right.
right? So it was a practitioner training in the LA area, and this doctor of ophthalmology took Bill's invitation of bring people to work on seriously. And he brought several of his clients his patients,
Mm-hmm.
that he had been unable to help. And the one woman came, she had what he deemed hysterical blindness.
Hmm.
There wasn't anything physically wrong with her eyes. And yet she'd spent about 30 years having to cover her head, cover her eyes, be in a dark room. She was hyper sensitive to everything. And she was essentially blind and had a form of double vision at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So she really could not open her eyes and take in the world and see because she just couldn't. So you'll understand when I tell you the rest of the story. Now, Bill, the founder of Cognomovement, he wasn't allowed to bring up what I'm about to tell you next. All he could do was focus on how did she feel about this blind state?
Mm-hmm.
How did the sensation feel? Because she was hypersensitive. What did her body feel like? But what he knew was that she had been in a prison camp in China when she was 10.
Mm.
Yeah. Her father had spoken out against the emperor prime minister. I don't even know what it was at the time, and the family had gone to a prison camp. Well, they really wanted the family to denounce the father who had spoken out against the whatever prime minister. Well, to do that, they used terrible, terrible tactics. And one of them was they took this 10-year-old girl and made her witness an execution in which brain matter and all kinds of other things hit her body. In that moment, she fell over, passed out, and was blind, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
The brain needed to protect her. It never wanted to see anything like that again. And at 10 years old, what else could the body do to protect her but make her blind? So this is 30 years later, and they come to the session. And frankly, Cognomovement was new enough that Bill's like, what the hell am I going to do with this? Right. But he knew there's not anything wrong with her eyes. This is a protective pattern.
Yeah.
So very, very slowly, they started to have her feel these sensations and start to move the ball. Now, there was enough eyesight that her eyes could sort of start to follow. And then he expanded and expanded the range of motion, the range at which her eyes, because eyes that don't want to see become very narrow.
Yeah.
And that happens for everyone. When we expand the vision out, the peripheral vision out, like the things you can see and understand become huge.
Yeah.
So for this woman, that's what happened. It was about an hour and 20-minute session, and they fully regained her eyesight.
Wow.
So she had come in with a huge hat on and a towel over that to cover her eyes from the light.
Mm-hmm.
She was moaning and groaning and suffering with every step. She left without a hat, without sunglasses, and laughing.
Wow.
To me, that's a miracle. And to my understanding, she still has her eyesight today.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was huge, huge.
Yeah. So just to recap in like really simplified terms, our brain creates patterns to protect us.
The body and the brain,
Body
not
and
just
brain.
the
Yeah,
brain,
sorry.
the body. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it gets ingrained, and we have the ability to overcome that patterning and delete them and create something new.
Yeah, we have the ability to just disconnect that circuit and the body gets all that energy back. Now, here's the really interesting and most important part. As you well know, a body in fight or flight or in shock does not route energy to healing, thinking, thriving, digesting. A body that's constantly in a bit of fight or flight is routing energy to get the heck out of the way, get bigger than the thing that's attacking, hide from it, or fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
When that's shut off and the body's like, oh, I don't have to fight. Now we have energy for the frontal lobe to think. Oh my gosh, we've had people create masterpieces in the days after a session because their creativity returns.
Yeah.
The energy's not running in fight or flight panic mode. It's like, oh, guess what? We have time to create. Things start to heal. The body just naturally has energy, the energy to heal again. It has digestion improves because the body can now relax and digest. So it's actually those jewels that I talked about, returning in full force to the body to actually function. That really creates what we call miracles.
Yeah. That's so true. Well, Liz, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can people go to learn more about the Cogno movement, find a practitioner, get started? Where do they go?
All of it is at cognomovement.com. There's a free ebook, which is Suffering is Optional. That's our motto. You can suffer if you want to, and sometimes we do. You want to sit around in your sweatpants and not wash your hair. But when you're done with that, you can delete it. So free ebook, downloadable, lots of videos, lots of content there. If a person wants to get started with this work, you can find a practitioner. You can work with Bill and myself, but you can also work with a practitioner in person or remotely all over the world. So all of that's at cognomovement.com. And we have what's called basic training.
Yeah.
You can buy the course. It's yours to keep. It's online. You get the balls. And as soon as that happens, you can start right away. We also have a free Thursday night event. Every Thursday, we do a free Cogno hour. So people can come and actually have a session. So that's cool too. So all of that's at the word Cogno, Cogno,
Mhm.
and the word movement.com.
Okay, awesome. I will put that in the show notes, and I'm definitely going to check out what it is you guys do on multiple levels. So thank you
We'd
again.
love to have you.
Been really enlightening. So
Thanks so much for having me on. It was a fun conversation.